Over the past decade, a variety of artists, including painters, photographers, and fashion designers, have gotten to call the historic landmark of the Pfister Hotel their creative home for a year. On this episode of The Arts Page, we celebrate 10 years of the annual Artist-in-Residency program at the Pfister Hotel, with a closer look at some of the artists who've been chosen. We start by stepping inside the hotel lobby studio to meet the current artist-in-residence, Wisconsin fashion designer Stephanie Schultz. Explore how 2010 artist-in-residence Katie Musolff's approach to paintings has evolved to create new and collaborative works. And discover the artistic journeys of the other artists who've had the honor to be part of this program. That's all coming up now on The Arts Page. Welcome to The Arts Page. I'm your host, Sandy Maxx. We're on location at the historic Pfister Hotel in downtown Milwaukee. For 125 years, the Pfister Hotel has been an iconic part of our city with a grand reputation for their hospitality and luxury, also known for having the largest collection of Victorian art of any hotel in the world. The Pfister's continuing dedication to art led to the creation of their Artist-in-Residence program. It started 10 years ago and has become internationally renowned. Each artist is given a dedicated space and a full year to devote to their artwork right here in the hotel lobby, where visitors and locals can experience an artist at work. This year, local fashion designer Stephanie Schultz is creating original garments that embrace historical elements made for modern wear.
Fashion is the armor that every single person wears. It's a way to externalize who you are inside. My name is Stephanie Schultz, and I am a fashion designer. To me, fashion design is more than just making clothes. It's about also telling a narrative and telling a story with what I'm making. At least I feel like that's my responsibility as a fashion designer, especially being a couturier and working in more of high fashion. They're a bit tight, but they look so good. The difference between ready-to-wear and couture or high fashion, it's more about like, when do you want to use it? When do you want to wear it? And everybody's personal style is different. So for me, what I wear as my casual may be somebody's like way out there, super fancy outfit. I think I have a distinctly unique look about my work, especially if you're looking at my work compared to other Milwaukee designers. I'm the only one who does like historically influenced high fashion. And I've never really felt like I personally fit into any kind of subculture completely. Like I don't completely fit into goth subculture. I don't completely fit into Japanese street fashion culture. I don't completely fit into steampunk. I'm an amalgamation of all of these things, and so is my work. Part of what my responsibility is as a designer is showcasing that beauty comes in a lot of different forms. I've always been a person who's a little bit outside the box. That's why couture is great, because it allows me to be rebellious, but with my fashion. Couture doesn't have to follow any kind of rules, which is really exciting. The hardest part of being a designer is when you are designing something first and then figuring out, okay, what's the geometry of the shape that's happening here? How do I make that into a 3D piece? So when I'm designing, I like to create pieces that do have lacing in the back or a little bit of stretch or cut on the bias so that they conform to the body a little bit better, because I like to make sure that the piece that somebody is getting from me is going to last them for a really long time. When I'm making things that are really feminine, I use a lot of ruffles and I use a lot of flouncy kinds of fabrics, and I use a lot of really nice high-end textiles and things that are very delicate. I definitely wanted to build a high fashion collection inspired by the Victorian art collection here at the hotel. The Pfister has the largest collection of Victorian art anywhere in the country. It gives me a place to start, but it's not that I'm making exact replicas of what's in the paintings. It's me interpreting what's there into something that's high fashion and into something that's modern with that historic element to it. There were some interesting elements in all of these paintings that I really wanted to draw inspiration from and translate into fabric and have a living painting. And do my interpretation of them where you get the general idea of, well, you look at them and you say, oh yeah, it's that painting, definitely. People are so far removed from the making process of things. People will be able to see the actual process of how a thing is made. And I'm hoping that it'll give them a greater appreciation for clothing, whether or not it's ready to wear. Fashion is more than clothing. Fashion is art.
Stephanie Schultz's residency will wrap up with a high fashion line of clothing with a distinct Pfister flair. Stop by and see Stephanie Schultz at work right here in the Pfister Hotel lobby and browse more of her one-of-a-kind fashion designs on her website, silversark.com. The beauty of the Pfister's Artist-in-Residence program is that it gives the artist the freedom to explore and expand their creative process for an entire year. 2010 Pfister artist Katie Musolff was well known for her portraits. Since completing her residency, she and her husband, artist Andy Fletcher, moved to the town of Stoddard, Wisconsin, and they got an opportunity to merge their individual styles of painting to create a meaningful artwork together.
The small village of Stoddard, Wisconsin sits on the beautiful banks of the Mississippi River, not far from the city of La Crosse. Just a few feet from the railroad tracks sits a small house where creativity lives.
Wait, turn it on.
Andy Fletcher paints pastoral scenes, oil on canvas, beautiful landscapes, Americana, Wisconsin, a simpler time.
I think I paint things that represent good things about our country in my mind. Craft, beauty. I think I try to paint things that represent an older, more sustainable way of farming. I try to paint things that aren't so obvious. I don't try to paint things that are just completely just done just because it's pretty trees or just because it's pretty. I want there to be an edge to it or a sense of realism. I think that's when I did a good job, is when people emotionally respond to what I do. When I'm at a show or something and somebody walks by and they're not really even paying attention, and I see that it just hits them, that they just walked by, that they saw this thing, they stopped what they were doing and just had to look at it. It was powerful or good enough or different enough or whatever that they just stopped and had to look at it. And sometimes they buy it even. But not that that matters, it's just that it was an emotional, pure emotional reaction to what I was looking at.
Just a few blocks away from home, in a small studio space, you'll find Katie Musolff, watercolors, plants, animals, flora and fauna.
I found this one stuck in the door here at the studio.
Bugs and birds, things she finds on walks through the neighborhood and along the highway.
I do the kind of art that I do right now as it's a direct response to the place that I live. Living in a place like Stoddard, where you're right on the river, right in the midst of lots of migration and lots of wildlife, and just responding to it, that's what's most abundant around here. And it's kind of like the low-hanging fruit. I find I have a real direct relationship to it. There's this real basic curiosity to these kind of things, because when I first moved here, I wasn't really regularly knowledgeable about these things I was finding, the plants, the mushrooms, the random feathers, and I really wanted to be closer to it and know more about it. And there was just kind of this mystery of coming from the city and moving here, and finding these beautiful things that I didn't know, I didn't know the stories behind them.
Katie used to paint portraits of people, only people. A few years ago, she was the well-known artist-in-residence at Milwaukee's historic and luxurious Pfister Hotel, where her work still hangs. She was very good at it and loved it, but she hasn't painted a portrait in years.
I can see it definitely swinging back to that, but only in a way where it would be just for me. As opposed to this stuff, I know I'm making a living on this. If I were to sit down and paint a person now, it would be just because I want to, just because I want to prove to how good I could do it, just to see how far I could push it. I don't care what that person thinks. I wouldn't ever care about selling it. And that seems like a really pure, exciting thing. So I can see how going back and forth between those two is really beneficial, because this kind of painting has made me a better painter, technique-wise, and observation and challenge. And watercolor's difficult, and all my other paintings of people were in oil and acrylic. And so I can see how those two ways of working actually would blend into each other and enrich each other really, really well.
Andy and Katie are husband and wife, born, raised, educated, and trained in the Milwaukee area. But this is home now. It is where they feel most alive. The Mississippi River is their front yard.
You live on this beautiful Mississippi River. How much does this influence your art? You're so far away from the big city.
Yeah, but I feel connected to all the music that came out of this country on the river. And I feel connected to the lifeblood of our country and our identity. And I think that's what my paintings are about.
But for my work, this is the playground. This is where all the stories start, is right out here in the marsh, in the water, around on the ground. So it's the beginning of everything.
A couple of years ago, Andy and Katie were married at this church in Milwaukee. Instead of accepting an honorarium, the pastor told them about an idea for a painting that he had carried in his head for nearly 30 years. The very moment after the flood, when Noah opens the door of the ark and sees the wonder and possibility of the new day that lies ahead. Andy and Katie delivered, and the painting is now the first thing you see when you walk in the church.
It is more than I imagined. They put a lot of detail into the painting. The more you look at it, the more animals you keep finding, the more touches you find. But certainly the faces, which is all I wanted, they certainly did that and more.
You were telling me when you're at art fairs, you watch people all the time, look at your stuff, and you can tell that they have an emotional connection and a reaction to your work. When you look at this painting, do you have an emotional connection to it?
I think of getting married here.
Yeah. This was all part of the package of getting married here, and our relationship with Pastor Mark and
the church.
And the church, and the story. It's a lot of great things wrapped up in one piece, and the emotion of him and I doing a piece together, for the first time. Thank God it was after the marriage,
That's not true.
We did pretty well.
Whether it's flora or fauna, faces or places, it is all natural, it is all real. What we get to look at is a deep and very personal connection between the artist and what they see and what they feel. And maybe, just maybe, we will feel the same thing.
Katie Musolff and Andy Fletcher's Noah's Ark painting is on permanent view at Calvary Presbyterian Church, known as the Big Red Church at 9th and Wisconsin. You can see Katie Musolff's portrait work here in the Pfister Hotel lobby. You'll also find both Musolff and Fletcher's artwork at the Torrey Folliard Gallery in Milwaukee's historic 3rd Ward. Learn more about their art on each of their websites, katiemusolff.com and tinyurl.com/Andy Fletcher. So what have the other Pfister Artist-in-Residence alumni been doing artistically? Let's look at how this program has impacted these artists and their continuing creative process.
Artists generally rely on products, but what artists are doing with the Pfister residency program is they're providing a service, a professional service. Their product is what they bring along with the experience.
For the last 10 years, the historic Pfister Hotel has transformed their lobby studio into an artistic experience for all who wander in.
Being in the Pfister Hotel, it's just a beautiful place. As an artist, I felt welcome, and it felt that everyone on the Pfister family constantly treated us like guests.
As the very first Pfister Artist-in-Residence in 2009, Milwaukee native Reginald Baylor painted works inspired by the hotel's Victorian art collection, with his unique style of color and lines. As time has passed,
the work has changed, and I produce all my work digitally. Now I do no longer hand paint artwork. To me, it's the same act of being artistic. It's just the materials are different. The result of being in the program, I think, elevated my level of professionalism as an artist when it comes to staying with my art. And then what experience am I providing?
In 2010, portrait artist Katie Musolff was inspired by the Pfister's employees, especially renowned concert pianist Dr. Jeffrey Hollander. Since completing her residency, Musolff has evolved her painting style to focus on local flora and fauna. Her detailed watercolors are studies of the plants and animals she observes near her Stoddard, Wisconsin home. Painter Shelby Keefe took over the artist studio in 2011.
What intrigued me about having my residency at the Pfister was that it was downtown, and that was my favorite subject matter, was painting downtown urban landscape scenes. The Artist-in-Residency program really opened up my career as an artist here in Milwaukee. So many people walk through the Pfister, and they're so intrigued by what's going on in that little room there. They wanted to see how you did what you did. They may want it so bad that they have to have a painting or whatever it is that you make. And so I've been doing custom work for people who remembered meeting me at the Pfister.
In 2012, sustainable fiber artist Timothy Westbrook transformed the studio into an eco-conscious fashion house, combining Victorian-era weaving and sewing techniques with disposable materials like plastic bags and cassette tapes.
While I was the artist-in-residence at the Pfister, this is the first piece that I created there. This is wool with the cassette tape. And because it was the first piece and it was a sample dress, I worked with all demo tapes.
Since his residency, Westbrook competed on the reality show Project Runway and moved to New York City. He's the founder of TL Brook, a sustainable fashion line of clothing created by repurposing discarded umbrellas. In 2013, Stephanie Barenz focused her residency on the stories of the people who traveled and stayed at the hotel. She also collaborated with the Pfister's narrator Molly Snyder to create a book about their shared experiences. Today, Barenz lives and works in Shanghai, China, teaching art and creating artworks about encounters in her new location in a new series titled The Transient Pause. Multimedia artist Niki Johnson spent her 2014 residency creating sculptures shaped like Victorian bathtubs and decorated with illustrations from fairy tales.
People come into my space and look at these child-sized bathtubs I was making. The conversation would go something like, oh, so these aren't functional though. And this is the point where I got to answer, but they do function, because it gets you to think about the way that we understand our world through this Victorian lens even today. The Pfister was an excellent training ground for knowing how to remain present with people who are in the moment of experiencing something for the first time.
Niki Johnson is currently creating thought-provoking, expressive art made from unconventional materials like an AR-15 assault rifle and metal fencing. In 2015, Todd Mrozinski painted silhouettes of the people and places of the Pfister.
To be in that space and never really know who is going to walk in to the studio, people coming in and interacting with me giving them my full attention, and if they were interested enough, sometimes I'd ask them, would you like to be part of the series? But it was all about the experience of coming into the studio and having this new experience and transforming their ordinary day into something extraordinary.
Mrozinski continues to create art in Milwaukee. He still works with light and shadows, but has shifted his focus to capturing nature in the present moment. Abstract painter Pamela Anderson covered her studio walls in bright colors during her residency in 2016.
It gave wonderful new layers to the work that I was doing. Everything affected my practice while I was in that program. My time in the artist residency program was incredibly busy. I realized at the end of the program how much stronger I had become, and I felt more relaxed, found it easier to talk about my work. It's an opportunity of a lifetime.
Pamela Anderson continues to paint and now is also creating sculptures. 2017 artist-in-residence Margaret Muza transported visitors back to the 1800s to create her tintype photos.
The Pfister is one of my favorite buildings in downtown Milwaukee. I love history and I love old things. That's what drew me to do the type of photography I do. And so I just felt so honored that I got to call that home for a year.
Margaret Muza now takes her cameras outdoors and on the road to create her latest wet plate photos.
I definitely will forever be thankful for how adventurous and trusting the program was with me and my vision for my work.
Each artist provides a legacy piece from their time during the Pfister Artist-in-Residence program to be part of the hotel's permanent art collection. You can see them all on display here on the first floor of the hotel. Take time to see this art on your next visit to the Pfister and learn more about each artist online at the website thepfisterhotel.com/artist-in-residence. Did you enjoy the art you saw on this show? Is there an artist or arts organization you'd like to see featured on the arts page? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So please call us at 414-797-3760 with your comments and story ideas. Stream previous episodes of the Arts Page anytime online when you visit the Milwaukee PBS website at milwaukeepbs.org and click on the Arts Page. You can also find Milwaukee PBS on Facebook. A very special thank you to the Pfister Hotel for their hospitality and their commitment to sharing these artists and their creativity with our community. I'm Sandy Maxx. Thank you for watching, and please join us next time for another half hour full of art on the Arts Page. Milwaukee PBS, working here, it really is a community, and it's fun to chat with other producers of the other shows, Adelante, Around the Corner, Outdoor Wisconsin, Black Nouveau. We all have the same excitement to tell stories, and we all can't do it if there is not support. Not just moral support and hearing people come up to you and go, I watch your show, I really enjoy it. That's meaningful, and that puffs us up and gets us going, and we want to go out there and make more shows. But if you believe in what Milwaukee PBS is and what we do in telling stories about Milwaukee, then that's when your annual membership of any level, it really does make a difference, because it costs money to get cameras out in the field and to make the arrangements and interview people and really get stories to you. It does cost money. And when we say things like, made possible by viewers like you, like, we really mean it. And if Milwaukee PBS is something you believe in, it's a membership you should belong to, because it really is a community, not just in the building, but all the other viewers. When we get together, it's really rewarding and enriching to know that the shows that we're bringing do make a difference.